We could do a video to make the Intuit people mad. We just did that. Make the hourly billing people mad. I feel like we've done that too. What would a video be that made everybody mad? Hey gang, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about credentials. CPA, EA, MFA, YTG, DOE. Is it possible to have a nice, civil, well-reasoned conversation about—
Stop it! Ooh. I worked hard for this! Don't take this away from me.
Whoa, gang, was that hard for you? Oh, could you, I couldn't quite hear you through the silver spoon in your mouth there. Okay, let's wade in, find maybe a constructive way to have this conversation. What are some things we could build bridges over and maybe acknowledge a few aspects of just the human condition that make this a sticky subject? So, 6 thoughts on credentialing. First is just to acknowledge that we care about the things that we're invested in. I was watching an interview the other day. It was a guy that runs a car review YouTube channel talking with a guy that runs a tech review YouTube channel. And the car review guy was like, our comment sections are intense. You say something about a car, people get upset. You got people fighting about cars in there. Whereas the tech channel guy was like, yeah, ours isn't really that sweaty, except sometimes maybe when you get into like expensive smartphone reviews. And the takeaway was, the more invested you are in a thing, the more you're gonna come and fight for it. So if you got that credential and that was one of the hardest things you've ever done and you invested a whole bunch of time and money into doing that, those hackles gonna come right up anytime anybody says anything about the credential. I don't know if that's right or wrong, good or bad, that's just how human beings are wired. And on the flip side of that, nobody wants to not be part of a club, especially if there's even just a whiff of holier than thou, I have this thing that elevates me above you. If you're on the other side of that, that is the quickest way to shut somebody out from wanting to have anything to do with you or any sort of reasonable conversation. We see that all over in life, from the person that drives up in the fancy car and thinks they're better than you, to I'm part of this group that because I'm part of it, I'm above you. I've got it all figured out. The feeling of being on the other side of that, the notion that they think they're better than you. And they may or may not. And maybe it's 100 people and one of them thinks that. So you kind of project that on all of them. You just, it's the quickest way to shut somebody down. So those two sides of the equation, it makes it really hard for people to have a constructive conversation about this stuff. Now it's made worse by a couple of types of people that just complicate things. Let's talk about Protect the Castle guy. He's got this credential and he wants that moat to be as big as possible. In fact, he's going a step further. He wants to pull that old drawbridge right up and not let anybody else in. As far as he's concerned, if he's the last person alive in the profession, that's good for him, right? And there's a few of those people out there. But the worst thing they do is not them being assholes, it's that you see that asshole and then you start thinking is that where everybody else is coming from? And the answer is no. Because the right answer to, is a barrier to entry good or not, is messy. There's good things about that, there's bad things about that. But because there's some of those people out there that just do not have a constructive approach, it's really hard not to lump all the people into that when you're on the other side of it. You got another group of people, Fancy Poo Society, who just want that credential to be better than you. It's as simple as that. It's a signaling thing. And maybe that's, maybe that's important to their clients in the same way that, turning up in a Maserati may impress a client or having a really fancy conference room table. But the fact that those people are out there can kind of give you the feel where you project that on that entire group of people. When in reality, there's a lot of people that probably just got that credential through the lens of is this an educational bar that will make me as prepared as possible for this profession I'm about to go into? Or as a method of differentiation. That was probably where I was at when I got my CPA coming out of school at 22 into public accounting. There's not a lot of other 22-year-olds running interesting businesses. And so the clients that we have, these people are old enough to be my dad, my grandpa. They're really gonna take advice from me. And for me, the CPA gave me kind of a baseline level of respect before I went into the room that maybe I wouldn't have been able to have otherwise. And that was me, a white dude at a 4-year-old liberal arts school that my parents were paying for. And when I got through that program, I thought, to be an accountant worth my weight, I have to pass this test. It was privilege on privilege. And it was hard to pass the test. I had every opportunity and it was still a challenge. But the frame of mind I had coming out of school was fed into by the program saying, man, the goal is to get all these students into Big Four. That's our yardstick for the success of the program that we'll show to, new people coming in, that sort of thing. When the last thing in the world I wanted to do was go into Big Four. And this kind of gets me to the risk of glorifying these credentials and people thinking, at the time, I thought in order to be an accountant, I had to have a CPA. And I was 3 years into accounting degree. So then what is the right bar for people to have to get over? Obviously, we don't want that sky high so that nobody can come in, but we don't want that so low that just anybody can come in and kind of tarnish the profession, right? Let's talk regulatory requirements. I think there's one of two things that we can really all agree on, maybe point to some positive examples of, and it takes some of the heat off of the other credentials and what they do and what they don't do. So a good example of regulatory requirements done well right now is what Oregon does for tax. You have LTCs and LTPs. Licensed tax consultants and licensed tax preparers. LTCs can sign returns. LTPs have to work under an LTC or an EA or CPA. They can't sign returns, but both of them come with continuing education requirements. You had to have like 1,000 hours of experience working under somebody else before you could take that test. But then the test is as relevant as it could possibly be. It's federal and Oregon tax. You're not gonna be auditing international financial statements. It is like as straight of a path to that expertise and being able to call yourself a professional as you can imagine. And this is a concept that I think we can all kind of grab onto, is for doing audits, a test, signing a tax return. There has to be some bar, but what's the right way to set that bar? And for me, this is the main thing I don't want us to lose sight of, is we have to enable a path to success for everyone. And to me, that looks like having the most direct possible path to becoming a professional in a specific domain. Now, you can have credentials that cover a bunch of domains, and there is value to that, but my tax preparer doesn't need to know about international financial statement preparation. They don't even know how to do an audit. What that international financial statement person needs to know, very different than what the tax preparer needs to know. The more this credentialing can be expertise specific, I think the more we can make it as accessible as possible. Get them just what they need to know to do that one very specific thing, and you're gonna make it easier for the disadvantaged to get into the profession and for people to transition from working for someone else to putting their own shingle out and saying, hey, I'm a pro at this stuff now. Now, in my career, I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, some of the most talented people I ever worked with had no credential. Some of them went on to get a credential. Some of them never went on to get a credential. And I learned a ton from them, and they helped a lot of people. We've all got the story of like those people that started at the front desk and went on to be a bookkeeper, tax preparer, partner. If those people are on the outside of the profession and one, just overwhelmed, confused, not know what they need, or two, are staring down a regulatory requirement that is so general that it requires a ton of work to develop that general expertise, instead of seeing a direct path to, here's the shortest, most relevant path to the expertise that I need to do what I do, we're gonna lose those people. Obviously, we need as many people as we can to come in right now to be able to make a living doing what we do. So if there's something that we can rally behind, let it be this. For each of these domains of expertise, enable the certification that will give you the most direct path to becoming a professional in that thing. Now, upstream from this, being able to see into those different areas of expertise before making that commitment, that would be valuable. Coming through school, I had no idea what I wanted to do because I didn't have any experience doing any of it. So there's some stuff like that that may be helpful for you to target that expertise. But there's a ton of people out there right now who are running bookkeeping businesses that could start doing tax. Give them the shortest possible path into tax. To me, that doesn't devalue any other certification that's out there. Those all still have value. And you can't neuter those existing certifications to change them into something else. They are what they are. A bunch of people already have them. That credential doesn't have to be the solution to this problem. So to me, rather than assigning blame on any of the bodies that oversee these credentials or the people that have them, let's just look at these domains of expertise and ensure that we can give people as efficient of a path to becoming a professional in them as possible. What do you think? Are you super mad? What other stuff can we kind of all rally around? Drop a comment. Like, what are the things we can kind of build bridges over that everybody can get behind, rather than getting all into the fiddly, nuanced debate over like all the little nitty gritty. That stuff doesn't matter. And then before you know it, the discussion's just like totally blown up and is not constructive. So let me know what you think. What are the things that we can agree upon to get more people into the profession? Because gang, the last thing we need to do right now is be competitive. So many more people out there that like need help than we can actually help.
I worked hard for this. Don't you take this away from me.